Oh, look at that.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our next Hangout on the Giving Tuesday Google Plus page. It is Giving Tuesday, December 2nd. It has been Giving Tuesday all around the world for a few hours now, and we kicked off yesterday over in the far-flung corners of the Pacific with New Zealand, who joined the conversation yesterday afternoon around 2 p.m. Eastern Time. And the conversation has been going all night. So much so that we are trending on Twitter all around the world in various hotspots. We've been trending nationally in the United States in third and fourth place on the trending topics since 6 a.m. this morning Eastern, and we're super excited and thrilled to be here and to have you with us. I'm going to be introducing my guests shortly, but I just want to recap for you a couple of big moments in the Giving Tuesday celebrations that we are seeing today. Firstly, if you haven't already heard, in the United States we have over 20,000 partners who have registered officially to join the Giving Tuesday movement. That's just the people who have registered, so who knows how many there really are out there, but it's a number that we're really proud of and excited of, because it says to us that there's an enormous amount of momentum, enthusiasm, and genuine commitment to really kicking off the giving season in this monumental way. Partners are defined, for those of you who are new to Giving Tuesday, as either organizations who are nonprofits themselves, or it's a for-profit company or a community group, or any kind of collective coming together who want to create some kind of project or giving initiative that benefits a nonprofit. And then the other exciting news to report is that we have over 5,000 partners around the world. We saw pictures overnight from the UN Development Program doing a clothing and dry goods drive for projects in India. We had communities gathering items in Mongolia. It's just been really exciting that this is truly a global undertaking. The UK was very active. They also trended #1 on Twitter. And so the reason I'm throwing out some of those social media stats is because today's topic, as you know, is the growth of philanthropy with the rise of digital media, and how digital media and philanthropy have informed each other, rely upon each other, and what philanthropy looks like in the digital age. So let me, without further ado, introduce you to my guests. We're coming to you from all over the United States. I'm based here in DC right now. I have Ritu Sharma, who's joining us from Silicon Valley, Jeff Rochester, who's joining us from New York, and Simon Manwaring, who's joining us from LA. So we really are giving you a bit of a bi-coastal overview today of what's happening in digital media and philanthropy. Ritu, I'm going to start with you. I'd love you to introduce yourself and your organization, and why social media matters to you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me here. I'm really excited to be talking about Giving Tuesday today. I am the CEO of Social Media for Nonprofits. Social Media for Nonprofits was started about 4 years ago, and we started because we felt like there was a need. We foresaw that social media could really allow nonprofits to level the playing field. It could allow small nonprofits to have as much of limelight as some of the big brands do if they use this technology correctly. And what we saw at the time was that there were several large conferences talking about social media in a single session or in one-off track here and there, but there wasn't a dedicated resource available to nonprofits around the country where they can all get together, talk about what is working, what's not, and how they can leverage this very important and very democratic technology in leveling the playing field, and also reaching their audiences and connecting with them, because connection is all this is about, right? So we're really excited. We've been doing really well. We are present in 14 cities, 3 countries, And our conferences attract nonprofits from all over the world who want to learn about how to leverage social media marketing for advocacy, for fundraising, and for increasing awareness of their cause. So I'm really excited that we've come a very long way from talking about why people need to have a Facebook page or a Twitter account to now the conversation is, how do I really take it to the next level? How do I increase donor retention? How do I really change a law or change something in our society that we don't like with the help of social media? So we've got a very, very bright and very participatory and democratic future ahead of us thanks to social media. Everybody has a say in participation.
Fantastic. I'd like to then hand over to you, Jeff, and talk to us a little bit about how social media has become important to the Nature Conservancy and what you're seeing.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a managing director for the Nature Conservancy, responsible for visibility. And, you know, we're one of the oldest and largest nonprofits out there in the environmental sector. We've been around for about 60 years. We're in 34 countries. And there's no question that social media is having a dramatic impact on our business. You know, when we think about what we do, job number one is awareness and getting people engaged and inspired. And of course, we also want to raise money. And so on the second point, just you look at traditional fundraising, at least in this country, that's been very reliant on direct mail. And so the holy grail as a nonprofit is, what is your channel strategy? You know, you can do direct response television, you can do canvassing, you can do direct mail. What's the role of social media? What's the role of online fundraising? And at what point do you get to kind of a tipping point where more of your resources are actually deployed online to drive online transactions, which is so much more cost effective? On the awareness side, there's no question that as an environmental NGO, you know, the topic we're discussing right now, climate change, energy, renewables, all these issues are the topic du jour. I happened to be in New York for the climate change rally a couple of weeks ago, and it was outstanding. There were 400,000 people in New York expressing their concerns and frustrations about the state of our planet. Well, that was a triumph of social media, the ability to aggregate and stimulate and organize that many people. So social media is playing a much bigger role in our business on a daily basis.
So I want to talk a little bit more to all of you about the relationship that we have with donors. But before I do that, I'd love, Simon, for you to introduce yourself and talk to us about the specific niche that you have as someone who focuses on branding and brand consistency and what that means in the nonprofit space.
Sure, thanks. You know, I'm Simon Mannering, and I'm the founder and chief creative officer of We First, and we're a brand consultancy that helps organizations, whether you're a large brand, whether you're a social enterprise, whether you're a foundation or nonprofit, tell the story of the good work you're doing in ways that build your business. Because increasingly, as we're seeing due to the transparency and the demands that social media has placed on organizations, you know, the good work you do, the purpose you bring to the table is becoming a really powerful business driver. And so, you know, when you look at what philanthropy is doing and nonprofits, when you look at what the government sector is doing, and then you look at the private sector, you realize together we could all do so much more than any one of us could do on our own. So we're really helping brands of all types tell the story of their good work in a way that inspires their employees or their customers or their donors to become advocates, because the real power of this social media technology is not really for you to be able to communicate with someone directly or to sell to them in a sense, but rather to inspire them to share your message one to many to one. It's the real power of this technology to inspire people to become advocates on your consulting for large organizations and brands and foundations on one side, and we do training on the other.
Fantastic. So I want to spend a little bit of time talking about how the growth of social media has changed relationships between donors and nonprofits. And then as a piece of that, I also want to talk about this idea of movement building, and that's one of the sort of linchpins, if you like, of the Giving Tuesday initiative is to create something that exists on its own. So Rita, I'll start with you. Talk to us about this idea of the donor relationship shifting and changing with the social media growth.
I think what I'm noticing now is that With the help of social media, and anybody that has $5 and a smartphone is a philanthropist. Before that, it was really the pastime of the wealthy and the privileged and the elite, where everybody dressed up in their buttoned-up suits and their pearls and got together, and the elite served the elite, which is what I wrote recently last week. And I think what it has done is very good. It has really allowed anybody with any kind of heart and money, and even if it's $5 and a phone, to become somebody who cares and give them a way of showing that and making them part of this change that we all want to see. So that is the biggest thing, is that it's really increased our reach. It really has. Now if you see Giving Tuesday, and Giving Tuesday is a perfect example of that. Giving Tuesday is not the heads of big corporations, big foundations, and in social media terms, influencers getting together at a big gala and writing big checks. It is not that at all. It is about getting every single smallest to the largest donor, but most often it's the smallest donors involved, giving them an opportunity to be part of something big, to feel like they can make a change. And they can make the change in issues that matter to them, not just the issues that have the biggest media coverage or issues that have the right people on the board. It's everybody. If you look around yourselves, or you look on your Twitter feed, it's everybody, whether they incorporated their nonprofit yesterday or they incorporated it 10 years ago. Everyone is playing at the same field, and everybody is raising awareness. So that's what's the change in the dynamic in the relationship between donor and organizations and philanthropy.
So, Jeff, I want to go to you. How does this play out in terms of your donors maybe getting tired of you? We hear a lot about donor fatigue. Is social media intensifying that process? How are you mitigating that as a risk? What are you seeing?
Yeah, so fatigue is a very big issue out there. Before I respond, though, I have to respond to Ritu, because we still like our big affluent donors. Just to be clear, we like all of our donors, the small donors and the large ones.
Absolutely.
So with regards to wear out, I'll go to an issue that Simon raised. Implicit in this conversation is trust and authenticity, and that's the issue that we spend a lot of time thinking about. When you look in the environmental sector, when you look at issues like GMOs or fracking or renewables, these issues are fraught with misinformation. They're fraught with emotion. And so one thing we focus on, we're very bipartisan in our makeup. In the U.S., for example, half of our donors are Republican, half are Democrat, and we know how politicized climate change and these issues are. So we take great care in that very fragile relationship between the brand and our donors and our audience to be transparent, to be authentic in our communications. And I would argue that this era of social media is putting a lot of pressure on everybody, because what's happening now is your brand is being more accessible. And again, Simon referenced this thing about the power of the platform is really that it's not this one-way communication, right? Ideally, you want your consumers, we want our donors having conversations online about the environment, having thoughtful conversations about TNC, but be careful what you ask for, right? Because now they are in the tent, now they are engaged dynamically in your brand. So to your specific question, we take great care not to abuse that fragile relationship, either with emails or too much messaging. And we're still learning. Look, we're all learning about how to do this, and especially on these issues of the environment. They're changing dynamically. So I think the big issue for me is we have had to kind of dig deeper into our values and let our values guide us in terms of how we're curating these conversations online.
That's a really critical word, and let's talk a little bit more about this idea of transparency and authenticity, both of which can be overused words, but that doesn't mean they're not critical. And I come to this conversation as someone who loves to be a donor whenever I possibly can to the things that I care about. And what I've noticed as a social media user, and I adore the digital space, is that as nonprofits have gotten smarter about digital, you're also getting better at communicating in ways that are really accessible to your donors. And I think there's been a risk in the past of nonprofits maybe using technical terms because the issues that you deal with are so complex. And it's kind of, there's been a range of extremes, right? It's either super technical and hard to access, or really melodramatic and almost offensive to perhaps a constituency that's being served and too simplistic. And social media is giving the opportunity for nonprofits to be more nuanced along that spectrum. So, Simon, I wonder if you could share with us some of the things that you think have been particularly interesting or exciting around social media use, either generally for nonprofits, but also specifically around Giving Tuesday.
Yeah, I think it's, one of the most exciting things that I've seen is a rising embrace of this new dynamic where there's a dialogue between brands and their donors or their customers. For a long time, people were threatened by it. They were scared by this word transparency. But nonprofits in particular have caught up very quickly to where for-profits are in terms of leaning into this dynamic. And I'll give you concrete examples of what I mean. If you look at GoPro, which is a very successful brand, had a very successful IPO, the reason they were successful is that they repositioned themselves not as a celebrity of their customer community, but as their chief celebrant. And what I mean by that is they gave their tool to their customers who then filmed themselves doing crazy things, and then they promoted those films of their customers. So naturally they wanted to advocate on behalf of the brand because they were co-creating the content. In the same way, if you look at the ALS fundraising sensation recently, very different brand, non-profit sector, but the same dynamic in the sense that they gave donors the chance to do something very demonstrative, pour a bucket of water over their head, and then nominate other people to do the same. So they co-created, they co-authored that brand story. And so what I'm excited about in the non-profit sector is that, non-profits are really catching up and in some cases doing an even better job of leveraging these new dynamics between the brand and its donors or customers and really putting them at the center of the story. And one of the fastest ways that you can be authentic, that you can earn trust, that you can be accountable is to allow your donor base to share that storytelling because they're going to bring their best selves, they're going to bring their shared values to the table rather than you trying to hold on to that too tight and manage it yourself. So if you approach this new dynamic with the right emphasis and think of your own brand as a platform on which your donors can stand and then give them a role to play in the storytelling to achieve that mission, a lot of things are taken care of at once.
Ritu, what are your thoughts on that?
In terms of, come again, I missed your question. There was a little bit of a gap. I think I'm having difficulty hearing Chrysula, and if I heard the question partially, it's about the branding, and also you're talking about giving about Ice Bucket Challenge and asking me to add on to that.
Yeah, if you can't hear it.
Oh, good, thank you. With Ice Bucket Challenge, it was a very interesting moment. It actually gave the best live demonstration of the power of social media, and also the more important question is ROI. After that campaign, we've got everybody from board to EDs talking for the first time ever, really embracing the importance of social media marketing in their organizations. Because they're like, while, to Jeff's point, while traditional cultivation of donors, traditional fundraising still reigns, if you look at the numbers across the board, I would be remiss if I didn't say that the offline donations and donations that come from galas and key foundations and also private individuals are still the biggest portion of the pie, but the pie is starting to have room for social fundraising and giving. And in the Giving Tuesday as well as Ice Bucket Challenge, you got to see that it's not just activity and running in the space, is actually progress as well. This can also be a part of really the way I look at social media is it amplifies as a layer on top of everything else you do. It isn't something that we see as this is the only way this is going to happen and this is the only way we're going to raise money in the nonprofit sector. What we see is whether it's programs, whether it's advocacy, whether it's fundraising, utilization of social media will amplify and make every one of those actions better because you can engage much better with your audiences. To Jeff's work, if he's doing advocacy and climate march and getting people really concerned about what we're doing to our planet, he will continue to do that through his traditional mediums as well. But with the use of social media, he's able to engage a lot more voices, so it's not a limited conversation. And same thing with fundraising. We're still going to continue to see a lot of the traditional fundraising methods. Those still account for a majority of the funding that's raised in the sector. but we're able to do all of those things better, whether getting attendance to the gala, whether keeping the people in the gala engaged, whether doing better conferences and events, increasing attendance, increasing retention. All of those are better with social media, and that's what I'm seeing as it's an enhancement of everything we do. It's a new way of communication, kind of like phone. I think we're going to get to a point where we're not going to have a social media person, as we don't have an operator that hands the phone to people and says, hey, your call is connected. This is going to be the way we communicate across the board in every aspect of social media in an organization.
Let me just add to that. We know that fundraising online on mobile works for disasters. Right? And so what we've all been following and wondering is, when does that behavior transition to just normal giving? I have to give the folks for Giving Tuesday credit, because this year what I got excited about was I saw a lot of offline promotion of Giving Tuesday. Just not promoting it online, but MSNBC, I watch a lot of MSNBC, they were all over this the past 2 to 3 days, touting Giving Tuesday, and I saw other networks talking about it. So I think, to your point, Ritu, about behavior and normalizing these activities, the normalization we want to see is people feeling agnostic to how they want to give and donate, and that it's easy and frictionless to donate on a mobile platform or online. I also think it's very important what Facebook did a couple of weeks ago. I don't know if you guys saw the announcement with Ebola. So, quite frankly, one of the things that I'm passionate about is, in all deference to all of the NGOs doing all of the great work around the world, if Google, LinkedIn, and Facebook got together, they could educate the vast majority of people in the world in a week on any issue. So I love it when you see these big brands, these big trusted online assets, advocate affirmatively for nonprofit issues. So for me, one of the most exciting things I've seen the past couple of weeks was when Facebook put a stake in the ground and said, we care about Ebola, we're going to use our platform to promote fundraising for Ebola aggressively. I'd love to see more of that, quite frankly, from all these big brands.
And I'll add something to that. I think Jeff mentioned a really important point. There's a coincidence of opportunity happening, in the sense that, thanks to the web, people are more informed and therefore more predisposed to be donors. At the same time, through social media, they're more connected, and thanks to the smartphone, frictionless payments and donations are becoming a reality very, very quickly. So there was just a campaign in London, a world first a few weeks ago, Penny for London. And basically people can go to their account and say they want to donate 20 euros or whatever it might be a month to causes they care about. And in various locations, whether it's the tube station or wherever it might be around, in their daily journey, they can just hold their phone up, or they can hold, it's probably be a band on your wrist or a smartwatch before we know it. Just hold that up to that donation opportunity and donate a penny or 2 pennies or 10 pennies, and then they're warned when they reach their threshold. But if you think of that as an opportunity in the broader sense, where you can make people more aware through the web, especially in real time, you can allow them, inspire them to share that information as advocates for that cause, and then people can make incremental donations just with a swipe of their hand in some way. That's a very, very powerful sort of opportunity that is going to become a seamless part of our life before we know it.
Yeah, no, I think we've just seen the tip of the iceberg. The thing that really keeps me up at night is, on a planet of about 7 billion people right now, we've got 2.5 billion in the middle class. That number is going to double in the next 15, 20 years. What happens when you have 5 billion people in the middle class, curious about their natural world, curious about climate change, wanting information, wanting to do something, wanting to engage? So I think you're right, Simon. These kind of frictionless, very easy to do things will become a normal part of our life. I would love if next year it's less about Giving Tuesday, it's more about Black Friday, and 1% of Black Friday sales going to nonprofits. I mean, think about that. So I think the idea of this dedicated Giving Tuesday is great, but the notion of making it easy for people to donate, easy to engage, easy to be inspired, 365 days a year, that's really what we should all be striving to.
Couldn't agree more. Thank you all for continuing on this really fantastic conversation and making some of your projections for the future. I think that we've got an opportunity here across the board, from whichever point we come to the nonprofit story from, to expand the universe of those interested in giving back. I'm a mom. I have 4 young children. They are interested. They ask questions about the different things that they care about in ways that I wouldn't have dreamed of in my childhood. And that, to me, is an incredibly exciting opportunity for nonprofits and organizations to be nurturing the Generation Z. Beth Cantor, who's a great commentator in the space, talks a lot about this young generation, the generation behind the millennials, and I certainly am seeing it in my own community with young people taking an interest and really caring about the world in ways that was unheard of in my generation. Now, I'm dating myself here. But I think it's very exciting, and particularly if they can donate with the flick of their wrist, as you say, Simon. Anything that you're worried about or concerns, and then I'll let you all have a final word.
I just think one challenge that every brand faces for a nonprofit is that they may lose sight of the fact that technology is not an end in itself. None of these tools are the solution in and of themselves. We are still human beings sitting around a campfire sharing stories. And if you can't tell that story in a compelling way, you're not going to connect with someone emotionally and inspire them to use that technology to make a donation, whether it's a smartwatch or whether it's a click on their computer. And so we shouldn't let the tail wag the dog. We shouldn't back out of big data. We shouldn't start with Facebook or Twitter and then wonder what to do with it in a way to raise funds. Instead, we should look at it and say, where is the alignment based on shared values with our audience? How can we communicate that alignment in creative ways that sort of overcome this donor fatigue that we talked about? And then how do we give them a role to play so that it's not just them doing it on our behalf, but that we're doing it together, that this is a shared vision. And then, you slot the technology into that set of priorities rather than the other way around, which is, okay, we're going to start with the technology and see what they can do for us. So, until they do away with us altogether, and we're quickly becoming a set of data points every day, so it may happen, but until they do away with flesh and blood altogether, we shouldn't lose sight that the thing that connects us is at heart.
Simon couldn't agree. Closing word from leave it to Jeff. For the
In closing, what I'd like to say is that what we're going to see in the future is hopefully, this is my vision. After Thanksgiving and after all the sales and shopping, we're going to sit down with our families around the table, and we're going to talk about what are our family values. What do we care about? What are we personally motivated and excited about? And sit down and give donations to the causes we all care. And make that an annual tradition. And whether you choose to do that offline or online, doesn't matter. What matters is we as a civilization make time to care about others. And we are as excited about it as we are about shopping for things that we don't need.
And then for my part, I just wanted to really thank some of our partners. You all know CrowdRise. With CrowdRise, with Etsy, made a nice TNC, and they're promoting TNC on CrowdRise. We're running out of time, but there's a that I would call everyone's attention to, Thunderclap. And they have a very interesting app kind of amplifies voice on social media. We're doing something with them that's terrific. And to Richie's point, yeah, we should all have a big, beautiful vision for how this activity becomes normalized into people's daily behaviors.
Thank you all so much. Get out there on the hashtag. Hashtag Giving Tuesday. I don't care how you give. I don't care who you give. Actually, I do. but I'll keep that to my own Twitter channel. But I do ask one of you, get out the give today and share the causes that matter to you. Because when we share, our friends pay attention. Our community pays attention. So even if it feels a bit uncomfortable, share how you give. Because it makes a big difference. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you to my great guests. And we'll see you on social media.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much.